Now imagine today that you decide you want to go out and learn to ride a motorcycle. You've saved up some of the money that you need for it. You've been on YouTube and you've watched hours of videos about Mod 1 and Mod 2 and how the training system works in the UK. You've even gone as far as picking out your dream motorcycle. And then you go online and discover that you can't actually book any of the test slots or training. Not because you can't afford it, not because someone else has got there before you, not even another rider that's got in there and booked all the slots up. It's a computer bot. It's a piece of software sitting somewhere on a server out there on the internet, booking, driving and riding test slots faster than any human could ever do it. And then they're selling them back on for hundreds of pounds. And no, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it is happening. And for anyone trying to get into motorcycling in Britain today, it's just one of the symptoms of a much bigger problem. Because right now, we've got an instructor shortage, a CBT backlog, and an entry-level training course that hasn't, well, fundamentally changed since the 1990s. And then there's tens of thousands of riders stuck in a licensing system that seems to have forgotten what it was originally designed to do. This is the motorcycle training crisis. Now, the chances are you probably know someone who's been trying to book a driving test recently. Maybe it's your son, maybe it's a daughter, a nephew, or a colleague from work. And if you do, then you've probably heard the stories that I've just outlined in the opening of this video. People are waking up at ridiculous times in the morning to refresh a DVSA booking website to try and get themselves a slot, just like they were releasing Glastonbury tickets. The slots then appear on the website and then they vanish almost instantaneously. And people are now having to resort to paying apps and buying browser extensions and looking at booking slots with cancellation services and getting callbacks when the cancellation comes in. And in some cases, they're paying hundreds and hundreds of pounds over the official price just to get a test date booked. And I know that sounds exaggerated, but it genuinely isn't. By mid-2025, the average wait time for a driving test in Britain had reached nearly 22 weeks. At some test centres, the test system was completely maxed out at the full 24-week booking window. And by the end of October 2025, there was around 642,000 learner drivers in Britain with future tests booked already sitting in the system. And into that chaos came these automated bots, these actual automated pieces of software script designed to book test slots in milliseconds the second they became available, and then to put them out and resell them online for a profit. The official weekday DVSA test fee is just £62, but the resale prices, sometimes upwards of £500, which is such an absurdly modern problem, isn't it? Ticket touts booking driving tests. I bet you didn't know that was a thing. Now, talking of things, let me bring this back to a motorcycle problem, because motorcycling sits in the exact same ecosystem, the same test systems that the DVSA bottleneck is currently sat around, the same shortage pressures, the same delays in delivering training and tests. Except biking has its own extra problems layered on top of that. Because before a rider can even get near booking a test for their full licence, they've got to go through the CBT. What's particularly strange about that is we've got people wanting to learn. We have training schools wanting to teach them, but we don't have enough instructors to connect the two dots. Looking online and finding some extra research, there was a quote from Phoenix Motorcycle Training, one of the UK's largest providers, saying that it currently had issued around 6,000 CBT certificates every single year. And even they were saying that they could train significantly more riders if they had enough instructors available. Their owner said they have more learners wanting courses than they can actually take on because they simply don't have enough instructors. And to me, it's just wild, because becoming a motorcycle instructor isn't some terrible minimum wage dead-end job. The role can pay upwards to around £40,000 a year, and it comes with a level 3 teaching qualification. You're outdoors, you're riding around on bikes, and you're helping people into a hobby and an interest that is motorcycling that opens the door to a whole range of mental health and social benefits. And yet, vacancies remain unfilled across multiple regions in the UK. Usually when an industry starts struggling to recruit despite demand being there, it suggests that the system itself has become awkward, outdated, and totally inefficient. The demand is absolutely there. In 2020, just over 32,000 riders passed motorcycle tests in Britain. By 2024, that number had climbed to almost 40,000 people. So despite everything we hear about motorcycling dying out, More people are actually trying to get licenses than ever. The appetite is absolutely there. The system just can't expand fast enough to keep up with that demand and meet it. And then we've got the CBT itself, which is, if you really scrutinise it, is quite out of date. The compulsory basic training course, the kind of gateway into motorcycling for everyone here in the UK, has remained fundamentally unchanged since the 1990s. Think about what motorcycling looked like in the 1990s. Think about what traffic looked like then. Think about technology. Think about what Britain looked like at that point in 1990. We had no smartphones, no delivery rider economy, and barely any cycle lanes on the roads. There was no modern rider assist or electronics within the bikes. There was no headsets inside our helmets playing Taylor Swift's greatest hits while a Tesla silently materialised alongside us. There's so many modern distractions now. And the strange thing is that while rider training is still operating on a framework designed for the 1990s, the reality of riding today has completely changed. Modern roads are jam-packed full of distractions. Modern bikes are packed with tech where we can link our phones to them and satellite navigations, notifications for X, Y, Z on your dashboard. And riders are constantly looking for ways to reduce information overload rather than add to it, which actually brings me nicely onto today's sponsor, which is Beeline Moto with the Beeline Moto 2. They sent me out one of their navigation devices to try out, and I genuinely love it. I think it's a great little bit of kit. I've been using it on my bike for a little while now, and there's a lot to like about it. There's a full unboxing video at the link in the pop-out banner at the top of the screen right now if you want to go and see everything this little device can do. And I've also popped a link in the description below if you'd like to go and check it out for yourself. And if you wanted to support the channel and you bought through that link, well, I'll get a little bit of kickback and commission, so thank you very much. Now, speaking of modern riding versus outdated systems, the entry-level training system for new riders has essentially stayed the same for 35 years. Now, to be fair, the CBT was never designed to be a full license. And that's really important to understand about the CBT. Originally, the CBT was supposed to be exactly what the name suggests: basic training. It's a stepping stone into getting your full license. You learn the fundamentals, you get out on the road safely, and then you progress towards a proper motorcycle license. That was the idea behind it. But what's actually happened is the system has, well, slowly evolved into something completely different. Between March 2023 and March 2025, around 77,000 riders renewed their CBT without progressing on to a full license. So that's nearly a quarter of all certificates issued in that period. So instead of the CBT functioning as a bridge towards a full license, for a huge number of riders, it's become the destination itself. It's a constant loop, renewing every 2 years. Do another CBT, carry on riding, stay on L plates indefinitely. And actually, if you're one of those riders currently in that loop on your second, third, or even fourth CBT, I genuinely want to hear from you below. So drop something in the comments. Why are you doing it? Is it the cost that's stopping you progressing? Is it the fact that you've got to do a theory test? Is there the stress around Mod 1 and Mod 2? Is it the lack of available training? Or have you simply just never felt the need to go further from your CBT? Like I said, drop a comment below, because statistics can only tell us how many people are stuck in this system, but they can't tell us why people are stuck in this system, and that's the part that I'd really like to understand. I get that doing a full license in Britain isn't cheap. As I said, you've got your theory test, you've got your various different training days for both Module 1 and Module 2, then there's the cost of bike hire and all the protective gear. I did a full video on all that, again, at the pop-out banner above, so I won't go into the costs too much here, but you can go and watch that if you find it interesting, and if you want to stick here, we'll also drop a link to it in the description below. But all you need to know for now is that for a full new rider, it can be financially brutal. So the system accidentally incentivizes people to just stay in the CBT limbo forever, which creates another strange contradiction. Because at the same time, Britain talks endlessly about road safety. We also have tens of thousands of riders repeatedly cycling through an entry-level course that was never intended to be permitted as an extension to the license system. And the industry knows this. The DVSA knows this. The government knows this, which is why, quietly and without much mainstream attention, they've finally started to put some movement into place and started to make things happen. Earlier this year, the DVSA launched a consultation proposing changes to the motorcycle training and testing system. And again, I will shamelessly plug another one of my videos, pop-up banner at the top or link in the description below, where I went into a bit more detail about what they were proposing to change. But in summary, some of those proposals seem surprisingly sensible. One proposal is combining the CBT and DAS instructor qualifications into a single assessment structure. Now that sounds incredibly bureaucratic and boring on paper, but what it actually means is lowering the barrier to entry to becoming a motorcycle instructor. At the moment, the qualification routes are fragmented and a little bit awkward, so schools struggle to recruit new rider trainers, which means we have fewer instructors. And with fewer instructors, we've got fewer training slots, which means learners have to wait longer, whereas simplifying that pipeline could genuinely help this. They're also looking at revising the CBT syllabus itself. They'll be looking to improve practical skills, improve hazard awareness, and potentially integrate the theory and hazard perception part of the licence into the CBT test for first-time riders, which honestly feels massively overdue, because modern riding requires a completely different level of additional situational awareness than it did 30 years ago when the CBT was first founded. Today's roads are, as I've discussed, distractions full of hyperstimulation. You're not just watching traffic anymore as a rider. You're watching for people crossing the road on their phones with their earbuds in. You're looking for delivery riders who need to get to their destination as quickly as possible. You're looking at people driving cars where the touchscreen now is used to put on their heated seats, and they've got lane assist systems, so they become inevitably lazy. We have silent EV cars we can't hear through our helmets, and drivers following sat-nav systems and instructions from those like hyper-fixated laser-guided missiles. The environment has changed, and training probably has to change with it. And perhaps the most controversial proposal of all is the DVSA is also considering introducing minimum wait periods before riders can simply renew a CBT again. Essentially, this is nudging people towards progressing onto a full licence instead of remaining in this permanent CBT cycle. Now, I personally see this one as a good thing, and I've said it in previous videos, but my opinion aside, I also think it needs to be handled extremely carefully, because if you push people towards a full licence without fixing the affordability issues and the training access issues, all you do is punish learners for a broken system they didn't create and ultimately push people out of riding. But the broader principle, I actually understand, because right now the entire pipeline into motorcycling feels, well, to me, oddly incomplete. You can see the cracks in the system absolutely everywhere. We've got growing demand. We've got not enough instructors to meet that demand. With that, we're creating really long wait times. We've got an outdated entry into the system with the CBT, and we've got testing bottlenecks, and a generation of potential new riders hitting friction before they've even properly began. And meanwhile, the wider DVSA system around it is trying to find ways to improve, because remember, the driving test backlog situation that we're outlining here became so bad that the government eventually had to intervene directly. In late 2025, they announced major reforms, which started with learner-only booking systems, which were planned for spring 2026 to stop these bot middlemen hoovering up all of the slots. They even went about deploying the military driving examiners to increase capacity and reduce wait times. More than 158,000 additional tests have been reported already since June 2025, and originally the target had been to reduce wait times down by several weeks, except for, well, unfortunately, that target has slipped. Now the aim is summer 2026. Now, which tells you how deep the backlog problem really has become. But with all that said, I actually think there are reasons to be optimistic here, because for the first time in quite a while, it feels like people are actually finally acknowledging the problem honestly. Not just a case of we need more riders, but why riders are struggling to enter the sport in the first place. Once you identify that bottleneck, most of them are actually fixable. Modernise the CBT, make instructor qualification simpler, expand training capacity, integrate better hazard awareness, create a clear path for learners from a learner licence to a full licence, and crack down on proper booking bots online They're all solvable problems. Not easy ones, but most definitely solvable. And if Britain and the government get this right, the payoff could be enormous, because motorcycles still solve a lot of real-world problems. Traffic, commuting costs, parking around town, congestion. But beyond that, they still matter massively for, well, emotionally. They still give people a sense of freedom, a sense of adventure, a sense of self and community. Motorcycling for many is an identity, and you can see it every time someone passes their test for the first time. That grin they plaster all over Instagram, that immediate, irreversible moment where the world suddenly, to them, feels bigger. And it would be a real shame if bureaucracy became the thing that stood between people and that life experience. So no, I don't think motorcycling in Britain is necessarily dying, as I've said in a previous video. If anything, the numbers suggest the opposite. More people are actively trying to get a licence. More people are looking at motorcycling as a solution to transport costs and, as I said, congestion and the sheer boredom of sitting in traffic every day. The interest is still there. The demand itself is still there. What we're actually looking at is a training and licensing system that simply hasn't kept pace with the reality of what's happening around it. The roads have changed, the technology has changed, the economy has changed, the people learning to ride bikes have changed, and their reasoning for riding has changed. But much of the system stayed exactly the same as it was. When people look at declining rider numbers, it's easy to assume younger generations simply aren't interested in motorcycles anymore. But the evidence around it all increasingly suggests something totally different. The future of motorcycling might not be the problem. The pathway into motorcycling might be. And if we can fix that pathway, we might discover there are plenty of future riders waiting on the other side of the door. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, go and check out this one up here, where I, as I mentioned earlier, go and unpackage the proposed changes that are being discussed around the UK motorcycle licence system. And if you're new here and you've been watching for a while and still haven't yet subscribed, you can do so by clicking my face in the little round button just over here. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch. Ride safe, and hopefully I get to see you guys in the next one.